fossil fuel, outstandingly toward efficiencies. The best fuel is no fuel, a fuel which is not necessary because we have created efficiencies. Houses which need virtually no fossil fuel for heating and cooling because they are solar oriented. So there are the various elements of rebuilding society. There's the financial rebuilding of society. And I would recommend, and I would venture to articulate a process by which we would make a national transition from dollar-denominated money toward hour-denominated money. This is a prototype of an hour-denominated national currency. This is the higher variance and the most fun. It says on the back, this labor credit employs Americans to fix our cities and farms. Please accept it, then spend it. This is signed by Patch Adams, who now lives in Urbana. Some of you have heard of Patch Adams, Dr. Clown, whose life story was told in the movie starring Robin Williams. He lives in Philadelphia now. He lives in Urbana now. He's authorized me to establish the first Patch Adams free clinic. Other than that, his Gesundheit Institute in West Virginia. I'll pass this one. Somebody's got my money. Who's got my money?
We'll get back to you.
All right, I trust you. The money was passed around at the Rotary meeting once, and some of it didn't come back. I trust you. So this is the financial change, a transition from an economy which depends on dollar-denominated, a system which is controlled by a Federal Reserve Board, which is itself not federal, but managed and operated by a consortium of the largest banks in the country. Okay. Okay, so the financial change, the structural change, rebuilding our civilization, our built environment, absolutely entirely, so that it needs these fossil fuels. We have these wonderful buildings here, and they are pumping the fossil fuels, keeping warm enough or cool enough, year after year after year. They are connecting us to, I think, a very inglorious future for the next generation. The great challenge of current generations is to reconfigure our civilization, our cities particularly, where most people live, so that they're least dependent on fossil fuels. And there are wonderful examples of alternatives. In 1983, I wrote the book Los Angeles, A History of the Future. I started the organization in LA, titled Citizen Planners of Los Angeles, dedicated to ecological urban design. This engages the engineering processes. This engages every discipline in rethinking, reconfiguring the city as we know it. A city entirely different than we know it, which decentralizes authority to the grassroots, which relies on decentralized technologies. Currently, our technologies, the technologies upon which we rely are excessively centralized. And people make good money through that centralization. But the future generations will not necessarily prosper through the continuation of these processes. There are wonderful alternatives. Check out Earthships if you're into architecture or engineering. Check out Earthships, buildings which need no fossil fuel for heating and cooling. which are made of recycled materials. So I imagine within 100 years, anyone living in this latitude will live in such structures or will escape to Mexico. Then culturally, gigantic cultural changes, ideas of success and progress and purpose. The ideas of success and progress and purpose upon which we currently depend are extensively dollar denominated, dollar defined. The more dollars we have, the more successful we are, the more validated our purpose. So, for my part, I've articulated different ideas of success and progress, and invite, through reading of any of the books that I have written, specific reassurance that there are practical alternatives. Not all of which, of course, I have invented, but there are thousands of organizations throughout this country and millions throughout the world at the grassroots level proving that there are wonderful alternatives to the way things currently are done. And finally, culturally, I think that what gets me up in the morning is that cities are full of beautiful children, innocent children, maybe until the age of 2 anyhow, and they deserve cities as beautiful as they are. And if our ambition were to create and to enact systems, processes, economies, and money, which made cities as beautiful as these children, if that were the operating principle of our personal processes, definitions of success, I think then, through that guidance, we would become gradually, over the next 100 years, a thriving civilization and a credit to humanity on planet Earth. I invite your questions and answers. Thank you.
I always jump on the mic and I don't have to do as much editing, if nobody else is. Money is about quantitizing things. I was hoping you would say a few things about how it's working out, and I don't know how you get at that. How many small businesses, what percentages are getting hours? What's the hour circulation compared to the federal dollar in the community? And then, I don't want to ask just the nuts and bolts question. Philosophically, are you familiar with David Graeber? He's kind of a philosopher, anarcho philosopher of the Occupy movement. He has a book out called Debt, the First 5,000 Years. And he corrects a misapprehension of how currency developed. We have this sort of idea that it just sort of organically grew up, and he says that's really not true. It was more always a destruction state. Once you needed armies, you had to levy currency and pay people back in that. And before that, it was much more collegial and bartering in the so-called world. So, pick or choose or whatever you want to do.
Certainly, there's a massive history of the evolution of money from barter to state-issued